The chandeliers at the pinnacle, the crown jewel of Chicago's dining scene, cast a golden glow over the sleek marble floors. But for Emily Harper, the air felt heavy with judgment. At 29, she stood quietly in the restaurant's opulent foyer, clutching a small velvet purse, her heart pounding as she braced for her father's 60th birthday celebration. This wasn't just a family dinner, it was a stage where her relatives would parade their wealth and status. While Emily, in their eyes, was the underachiever in a simple navy dress, forever the odd one out. What they didn't know was the secret she'd guarded for years, a truth that would unravel spectacularly under the city's skyline tonight. Emily Harper grew up in a world polished to perfection, where appearances were everything. Her family, rooted in Chicago's affluent suburbs, had climbed from modest beginnings to the upper echelons of society, and they wore their success like a badge of honor. Her father, James Harper, was the epitome of the American dream. The son of a mechanic and a schoolteacher, he'd built Harper Construction into a multi-million-dollar empire through relentless hustle and sleepless nights. Her mother, Lillian Harper, had reinvented herself from a small-town girl into a socialite, curating connections with Chicago's elite and obsessing over the family's image. Then there were Emily's siblings. Her older sister, Lauren Harper, 35, was the family's golden child. A Yale law graduate, she'd landed a coveted role at a top-tier law firm, Brooks, Carter & Wells, and never missed a chance to remind everyone of her credentials. Her wardrobe screamed designer labels, and she dropped mentions of her alma mater like a verbal business card. Her brother, Michael Harper, 33, was a cosmetic surgeon catering to Chicago's wealthy and famous. His life a carousel of luxury cars, yacht parties, and Instagram-worthy vacations. For Lauren and Michael, worth was measured in envy. The shinier the possessions, the louder the applause. Emily, though, was wired differently. While her siblings thrived in the spotlight, she was introspective, drawn to books, ideas, and questions about the world's deeper workings. As a child, she'd spend hours sketching or lost in novels, puzzling over why people chased status over substance. This difference sparked tension early on. "Why can't you be more like Lauren?" her mother would sigh, pointing to her sister's perfect grades or high society friends. Emily tried to fit the mold, earning a business degree from a solid state university, not Ivy League. To her parents' quiet disappointment, she even took a corporate job after graduation. But 2 years in, the soulless grind of office politics crushed her spirit. So, she quit. That choice branded her the family failure. "You had such potential," Lillian lamented when Emily broke the news. "What will we tell people?" James, once her biggest cheerleader, said little, but his silence stung worse than words. What they didn't know, what Emily hid, was that she'd poured her savings and soul into founding BrightPath, an edtech startup creating affordable software for underfunded schools, while her family thought she was managing a quaint bookstore in Lincoln Park. BrightPath had just secured a funding round valuing it at $75 million. Emily lived modestly, an unassuming apartment, a reliable Honda, simple clothes, to test whether her family could love her for who she was, not what she'd achieved. She also feared that revealing her success would pull her into the same status-obsessed vortex that had consumed her family. Family gatherings were a masterclass in subtle cruelty. At last year's Thanksgiving, Lillian had smiled tightly as she unwrapped Emily's gift, a handcrafted journal, saying, "How thoughtful, dear. I'm sure this was a stretch on your bookstore salary." Lauren smirked. "What? Did you spend your whole paycheck on this?" Michael, scrolling through photos of his new Tesla, scoffed. "Some people romanticize scraping by. It's called justifying failure." Emily bit back her anger, keeping her secret locked tight. Her father, distracted by his phone, barely glanced her way. James had once been her confidant. As a girl, Emily cherished their Sunday drives to Lake Michigan, where he'd share stories of his scrappy upbringing and preach that character trumped cash. But as Harper Construction grew, so did his distance. He became consumed by networking and appearances, judging even his children by their net worth. Lillian, meanwhile, lived for the approval of her country club friends. cringing at the thought of Emily's lowly job tainting the family's polished image. 3 months ago, James suffered a minor stroke. A wake-up call that shook Emily. Despite their strained bond, she loved him fiercely and wasn't ready to lose him. She resolved to reconnect, starting with his milestone birthday at the Pinnacle. Little did she know, the night would expose raw truths about her family, and herself. The morning of the dinner, Emily stood before her closet, weighing her options. She could show up in a designer gown, signaling her wealth and silencing her critics. The temptation flickered, she'd spent years swallowing their jabs. But that would undo her quiet rebellion, her test of their love. Instead, she chose a navy dress, elegant but understated, paired with a simple silver necklace and stud earrings. In the mirror, she looked poised, not flashy, perfectly fine for a high-end restaurant, but not up to her family's ostentatious standards. Her phone buzzed. It was her best friend, Rachel, who knew the truth about Brightpath and Emily's family dynamics. Ready for the Harper family circus? Rachel teased. Emily sighed. As ready as I'll ever be. Part of me wants to just tell them everything. Rachel's voice softened. You've built something incredible, Em. Not just the money, but the impact. Whatever happens, you don't need their validation. Emily smiled, grateful, and wrapped her father's gift, a rare first edition copy of *The Great Gatsby. His favorite novel, which she'd hunted down for months. To her family, it would look like a modest gesture from their struggling sister. The Pinnacle sat atop Chicago's tallest skyscraper, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a dazzling view of the city. Emily had dined there often, hosting Brightpath clients or charity events. And the staff knew her well. She arrived early, needing a moment to steady herself. The head hostess, Clara, greeted her warmly. Ms. Harper, so good to see you. The private room set for the Harper party. Emily leaned in. Clara, please don't mention my work tonight. My family, they don't know about Brightpath. Clara raised an eyebrow but nodded. Of course, we'll keep it discreet. Sipping sparkling water at the bar, Emily gazed at the city lights, trying to calm her nerves. Then her family arrived. Lillian swept in, dripping in diamonds and a couture gown. James followed, distinguished in a tailored suit but visibly tired. Lauren and her husband, David, looked like they'd walked off a Vogue cover, while Michael made a show of tossing his Porsche keys to the valet. Emily approached, gift in hand. Happy birthday, Dad. James hugged her stiffly, his eyes already drifting to a group of business associates he'd invited. Lillian scanned Emily's outfit, whispering, couldn't you have tried harder for your father's big day? That dress looks thrifted. Lauren kissed her, muttering, even the waitstaff here outshine you. Try not to embarrass us. Michael clapped her shoulder, still rocking the budget vibe. Huh? Let me know if you need tips to afford better clothes. Emily forced a smile, the familiar sting of their words cutting deep. Her father, now chatting with his colleagues, barely acknowledged her. As the group moved toward the private dining room, Lauren pulled her aside, her grip tight. You're underdressed for the Pinnacle. This place is out of your league. Michael joined, champagne in hand. Don't worry, sis. I'll cover your bill if you're strapped. What's family for? Lillian, drawn by the delay, hissed. Maybe you should wait at the bar. Emily, we don't want to distract from your father's moment with this. She gestured at Emily's dress. The public humiliation was suffocating. Emily felt herself shrinking, her chest tight with the threat of tears. She'd promised herself she'd never cry in front of them again. But the rejection, her mother pretending not to know her when a socialite glanced their way, was a gut punch. Childhood memories flooded back, being relegated to the kids' table long after her siblings joined the adults. Her honor roll achievements ignored while Lauren's Ivy League acceptance was toasted. Being introduced as our other daughter, with no mention of her dreams. A security guard approached, drawn by the commotion. Is there an issue here? Lauren, with a smug smile, said, no issue. My sister was just leaving. Emily's hands trembled, her vision blurring with anger and shame. But then the guard's face lit up with recognition. Ms. Harper, Madam CEO, your usual table's always ready if you need it. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Silence fell as her family's faces froze. Before anyone could speak, the manager, Victor, hurried over. "Ms. Harper, we didn't know you'd be with family tonight. Is everything all right?" The head chef, Marco, followed, beaming. "Emily, I've got that lobster ravioli you loved last time. Shall I prepare it for your group?" Then the owner, Vincent, appeared. "Emily, had I known you were coming, I'd have reserved the Skyline Suite. Your charity gala last month raised $3 million for literacy programs, truly remarkable." He turned to her stunned family. "Your daughter's a visionary. Did you know she owns this building?" The revelation landed like a bombshell. Emily owned the Pinnacle's skyscraper, one of Chicago's priciest properties, and was the mastermind behind BrightPath, a company transforming education for underserved kids. Lauren's jaw dropped. Michael's smirk vanished. Lillian's face cycled through shock and calculation. And James, for the first time all night, looked at Emily with genuine curiosity. A mix of emotions swirled in Emily's chest: vindication, yes, but also a piercing sadness. After years of dismissal, their sudden respect felt hollow, tied to her wealth rather than her heart. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I'd like to join my father's celebration. If I'm still welcome." Lauren, quick to pivot, stammered, "Of course, just a silly joke." Michael nodded. "Family teasing, you know." Lillian slipped her arm through Emily's, as if they'd always been close. Vincent, sensing the tension, ushered them to the private room, where Emily was seated at her father's side. Not the far end. As they settled in, the city skyline glittering beyond the windows, Emily caught James's gaze. For the first time in years, he saw her, not as a disappointment, but as someone worth knowing. Whether this was progress or just another form of conditional approval, she wasn't sure. But tonight, the truth was out, and the stage was set for a reckoning that could either break her family apart or rebuild them anew. What happens when secrets unravel and a family's values are put to the test? Stick around to see how Emily navigates this turning point, and whether her family can learn to love her for who she is, not what she's worth. The private dining room at the Pinnacle shimmered with elegance, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow, the Chicago skyline glittering through towering windows, and a string quartet weaving soft melodies in the corner. But for Emily Harper, 29, the air crackled with tension. Moments ago, in the restaurant's foyer, her family had tried to banish her from her father's 60th birthday celebration, dismissing her navy dress and presumed bookstore job as unworthy of their high society standards. Then, like a scene from a movie, the truth exploded. Emily wasn't a struggling nobody. She was the CEO of BrightPath, a $75 million ed tech empire, and the owner of the very skyscraper housing the Pinnacle. As her stunned family, parents James and Lillian, sister Lauren, and brother Michael, followed her to the best table in the house, the power dynamic shifted. But for Emily, this wasn't victory. It was a painful reckoning, forcing her to confront whether her family could ever love her for who she was, not what she'd built. Buckle up, because this night was about to change everything. As the Harper family settled into the private dining room, the atmosphere was electric with unease. Emily, now seated prominently beside her father, James, felt the weight of every glance. Lauren's perfectly manicured hands fidgeted with her wineglass, her earlier smugness replaced by a mix of shock and calculation. Michael's usual swagger was gone, his eyes darting as he processed the bombshell. His failure of a sister was a titan in Chicago's business world. Lillian, ever the socialite, clutched her pearls, literally, her face a kaleidoscope of embarrassment and newfound pride. James, for the first time in years, looked at Emily with something like awe, though whether it was for her or her empire, she couldn't tell. The staff's parade hadn't helped. Victor, the manager, hovered attentively, ensuring Emily's water glass stayed filled. Marco, the head chef, had promised a special lobster ravioli for Ms. Harper's party. Vincent, the owner, had gushed about her $3 million charity gala, casually mentioning she owned the building. Each revelation was a dagger to her family's carefully curated narrative. Lauren, quick to recover, forced a smile. Why didn't you tell us? We're so proud. Her voice dripped with syrupy charm. But her eyes betrayed panic. Michael chimed in. Yeah, sis. You've been holding out all this time, playing the broke bookstore clerk? Lillian, arm now linked with Emily's as if they'd always been confidants. Cooed. Darling, this is incredible. You're just like your father. Emily's stomach churned. Their sudden adoration felt like a betrayal worse than their earlier scorn. For years, she'd hidden BrightPath's success, its mission to empower underfunded schools, its recent $75 million valuation, to see if her family could value her without the trappings of wealth. They'd failed that test spectacularly. And now their flip-flopping only deepened her hurt. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said, her voice calm but firm. I'd like to stay for Dad's birthday. If I'm still welcome. Lauren nodded vigorously. Of course. It was just a joke. Right, Michael? He grinned. Family banter. You know how it is. But their backpedaling couldn't erase the sting of their earlier words. As the appetizers arrived, artfully plated scallops drizzled with truffle oil, the room buzzed with forced chatter. James's business associates, sensing the shift, approached Emily with handshakes and praise. One, a venture capitalist, said, "Your work at BrightPath is game-changing. We're partnering on a literacy initiative next quarter." Another, a foundation head, added, "Your software's in 200 schools now. Right? Remarkable impact." Each comment was a fresh blow to Lauren and Michael, who'd spent years clawing for access to these circles. Lauren's smile tightened as she positioned herself next to a tycoon, while Michael leaned toward a tech mogul, both desperate to reclaim the spotlight. Midway through the main course, seared duck breast with a cherry glaze, James broke the uneasy silence. "Emily," he said, his voice low but carrying across the table. "Why didn't you tell us?" The room stilled, forks pausing mid-air, her family's eyes locked on her. Hungry for an explanation, Emily set down her glass, her heart racing but her resolve firm. This was the moment she'd both dreaded and needed. "I didn't tell you because it wouldn't have mattered, not in the way it should," she said, her tone steady but laced with years of hurt. "You're proud now because I'm successful by your standards. But when you thought I was just managing a bookstore, did you ever ask if I was happy? Did you care about my dreams?" Lillian's brow furrowed. "Of course it would have mattered. We'd have celebrated you." Emily shook her head. "No, Mom. You wanted me to be like Lauren or Michael, rich, flashy, connected. You never asked who I wanted to be." She turned to James. "Dad, remember when I was 10 and won that poetry contest? My poem was published in a city anthology. And I was so proud. But that same day, Lauren got her Yale acceptance. And no one even came to my reading." James looked down, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. "Or in high school, when I made Dean's List every semester. But it was never enough because Michael was in med school. And that was real success." Lillian interjected. "We were pushing you to be your best, Emily." But Emily's voice sharpened. "No, you taught me my worth was tied to money and status. When I left corporate life to build something meaningful, you treated me like I'd failed." Lauren, defensive, snapped. "So you lied to us for years, letting us think you were barely scraping by while you were secretly a millionaire? That's manipulative." Emily met her gaze. "I didn't lie. I just didn't share. I wanted to know if you could respect me without a big bank account or a fancy title. And tonight proved you couldn't." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "You set us up to fail a test we didn't know we were taking." Emily nodded. "Maybe. But if that guard hadn't recognized me, would I be at this table? Or would I be at the bar? Excluded from Dad's birthday because I didn't look rich enough?" The silence was deafening. Her family's faces, Lauren's defiance, Michael's unease, Lillian's confusion, told her she'd hit a nerve. "I'm not here to ruin Dad's night," she continued. "I just want you to see how broken our family's been. Tonight made that impossible to ignore." James cleared his throat, his voice thick. "Emily, can we talk outside? Just you and me." She nodded, and they stepped onto the private terrace, leaving the stunned room behind. The Chicago skyline stretched before them, A sea of lights against the night. James leaned against the railing. Looking older, more vulnerable than Emily had ever seen. I had a speech planned tonight, he said, about my journey, my legacy. It feels empty now. He paused, then asked, when did I lose you? Emily? The question pierced her, and tears welled up despite her resolve. It was slow. Dad, you used to tell me character mattered more than money. But as your business grew, as we moved to bigger houses, fancier circles, it became about status. You stopped seeing me. James nodded, his eyes distant. I grew up with nothing, cold winters. Meals of stale bread and canned beans. I swore my kids would never know that. But somewhere, providing security turned into chasing clout. Emily's voice softened. I get that, Dad, but in shielding us from poverty, you created a different kind of insecurity. I never felt loved unless I was winning by your rules. He turned to her, eyes glistening. I'm sorry, Emily, I didn't see it, and now I learn my failed daughter is more successful than any of us. It's humbling. Emily shook her head. That's not the point. My company doesn't make me worthy of your love. I am, just as I am. He nodded. I'm starting to see that. And, the experimental treatment after my stroke. Was that you? Emily hesitated, then nodded. She'd anonymously covered the $400 procedure when insurance denied him. Why not tell me? He asked. Would you have accepted it from the daughter you thought was broke? He had no answer, and that said everything. I want to know you again, Emily, he said, not the CEO, but my daughter, if you'll let me. Her heart ached with hope and caution. I'd like that, Dad. Back at the table, the mood had shifted. James was more present, asking Emily about Brightpath with genuine curiosity, its mission, its impact, her passion. Lillian, in a rare moment of vulnerability, pulled Emily aside after dessert. I feel like I don't know you, she admitted, eyes teary. You never tried to, Mom, Emily said gently. You were so busy molding me into someone else. Lillian dabbed her eyes. I grew up ashamed. Hand-me-down clothes. The wrong address. I wanted you to have everything I didn't. Emily nodded. I understand, Mom, but you pushed your fears onto me. It's not too late to learn who I am. It wasn't a full fix, but it was a start. Emily set clear boundaries, and for once, Lillian listened. Lauren cornered her later, defensive. So you've been judging us? Hiding your millions? Emily replied. No more than you judged me for not having them. You could have cared about my happiness, even when you thought I had nothing. Lauren's bravado cracked. I've been jealous, even when I thought you were stuck at that bookstore. You seemed free. I hate my 80-hour weeks. But I'm trapped by everyone's expectations. Emily softened. It's never too late to change. Lauren, trust me. Michael, as the night wound down, was uncharacteristically introspective. While I was flashing my cars, you were changing lives. I forgot why I became a doctor, to help people, not chase status. Emily smiled. Your work matters, Michael, but you can choose what kind. He nodded. I'm starting to see that. Weeks later, Emily invited her family to Brightpath's offices. They saw her lead a passionate team, tour a buzzing development floor, and hear stories of schools transformed by her software. Literacy rates up. Kids in underserved areas thriving. James launched a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. Inspired by Emily's work, Lillian began volunteering at a community center. Slowly embracing new values, Lauren took on pro bono cases for educational equity. Finding purpose beyond prestige, Michael shifted his practice to include reconstructive surgeries for those in need. Rediscovering his original calling, Emily's journey wasn't over. The scars of rejection lingered, and she still questioned whether her family's newfound respect was genuine. But she was learning to be authentic, sharing her triumphs and struggles without needing their approval. Brightpath grew, launching programs for refugee education and tools for students with learning differences. Emily and James even started a foundation together, blending his business savvy with her vision, a collaboration unthinkable a year ago. This wasn't just about a secret revealed or a family humbled. It was about redefining worth, not by wealth or status, but by integrity, impact, and authentic connection. Emily learned that even fractured families can heal with honesty and effort. And that living true to yourself draws the right people closer while letting others fade. That night at the pinnacle, a painful confrontation became a catalyst for growth, proving it's never too late to rebuild something real. Have you ever been judged for not fitting someone's mold of success? Ever had to fight for your own definition of worth? Share your story below. And if this tale of truth and transformation hit home, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life journeys that might just inspire you to live boldly and authentically.